now that the relegation has happened for a Lotto and an Israel, there's consequences for both. A Lotto is a team that is now the first team of the teams that are not going to go to World Tour. They get access, a guaranteed access if they wanted, to all World Tour races. That's pretty damn significant. Within Israel, they are third, which means that they only have access to the classics. They can still gain access to other races if those races actually willingly give it to Israel. But there's some discussion on whether the Tour de France is going to give their wildcards to Israel or whether there's going to be a BNB taking a wildcard and maybe a UNOX, and that still has to be decided for in Israel. So they are not sure about their World Tour. This video is brought to you by Zwift. Whether you're just starting out on your cycling journey or are looking for those final tune-ups ahead of a big event or race, Zwift is the online cycling platform that makes things fun. There are 9 different worlds, thousands of kilometers of virtual road, including replicas of real-world climbs like Alpe du Zwift. There's workouts, training plans, events, and even races for every level of rider. Zwift's massive community means you're never alone on the road. So if you want to know more about Zwift or want to start your 7-day trial for free, head to Zwift.com below.
Lotto are in a good position. They're in Alpeson's position, but they got to be careful. Because, you have one bad year, you have 2 stars get injured or sick, and all of a sudden you're in a very, very difficult position. But with Ancorn, who look good in Canada, and, I think in the smaller classics, Ancorn can really score consistently. I don't like the Guarnieri signing. Vermeersch has got to step up, but they got the pieces. Israel, on the other hand, are in a much more difficult spot. But I think almost have a higher upside. Now, whether they can, in that they have no TDF access. They have Adams threatening to sue the UCI about the relegation system. They have a Giro organizer who doesn't really have a spot for them, even if they pony up the cash. And the Vuelta looks unlikely too. Probably the World Tour stage races, they'll be all right, the 1 weeks. But they do have a high upside with Fulsang, with Froome, Woods, Nizzolo, in that they can score a lot. But man, it's going to be tough to motivate those riders to do it. I'll be surprised to see it. And Total Energy with Sagan can still score points in smaller races, French races. Dries van Gestel, that guy, Simon, he's like 38. He scored loads of points this year. So Total know the drill and are improving. So I think Lotto should be fine next year, Benji. I think it's Israel against Total. And I have Total favoured pretty handily, actually, to keep that premium wildcard.
I actually agree with that. And I also see a future with Total with getting other riders next to a Sagan in the future as well. Because at a certain point, the Sagan is not going to be there anymore. And for example, an Alaphilippe comes out of his contract at Quickstep after 2024. I would love to see a transfer where an Alaphilippe joins a French team then, for example, because he won't be able to share his Tour de France goals anymore with an Evenepoel who will try to win the Tour de France. So it wouldn't surprise me if an Alaphilippe leaves that and he might join a Total, for example, in 2025. I think that's a cool transfer that's possible, and that might lead to them getting an Alpecin spot in those years after as well, or even if they gain enough points in the next 3 years, they might even gain a World Tour spot in the future, which would be another French team in World Tour with BNB trying it as well. So we're stacking up the French teams at the moment in World Tour. That being said, I think when it comes to our entire discussion so far, it becomes clear that Lotto is in a better position than Israel. And I don't believe that Lotto is in too much trouble as long as they keep their focus on sustainably building out their future, because they've gotten so many talents from their dev teams and brought them to World Tour teams. Like Louis Vervaeke, I'm pretty sure he comes from Lotto's dev team initially at the start of his career. Like, there's a ton of riders that come from the Lotto dev team that you see at other teams, like a Devenijns, also back in the day. These are riders that started at Lotto in some shape or form, if my memory serves me right. And that would argue that there's something in that. Now, there's also the aspect when it comes to Israel. Will every rider stay in their team? Adelia and you, and I'm pretty sure, have mentioned for Lotto-Soudal that they stay or not?
I think everyone at Lotto will stay. Israel, I don't know, because it's the end of October, middle of October. a lot of teams like Fulsang has mentioned he's thinking about leaving or retiring. It depends if people are on cheap deals. If I'm Simon Clark, he might have signed an extension already on decent money, but if I'm Simon Clark, I'd be looking around for a better deal elsewhere after winning a Tour de France stage. So yeah, Israel are much more likely to have guys go, and they can't afford to have riders like Simon Clark walk out the door, or even Fulsang, even if he's overpaid, he still came third in Tour de Suisse. But yeah, listen, in American sports, in the Premier League, there'd be a lot of changes to the team, and there are a lot of. Lalong has stepped down earlier this month, but yeah, like there'd be a lot of changes, and Israel, I think, need a lot of changes if they want to keep that project going. On your point about Lotto's development, I agree. Lotto signed a lot of riders who I'm like, man, that rider ain't no good. He's only got a contract because he's Belgian, but they still have a pretty high strike rate of producing legit Belgian superstars, like top tier guys. Arnaud Delis looks legit, top tier superstar guy. Bjorg Lambrecht, let's be honest, it's the unfortunate reality.
Yeah.
He unfortunately passed away in Tour de Pologne. If that hadn't happened, Lotto wouldn't have been relegated. And it's completely outside of their control. The guy was going to be a perennial Ardennes podium lock for a decade. The kid was legit, and terrible accident happened. And so, yeah, Lotto, I think, probably can keep producing really, really top Belgian talents. They got on to lead. The Ewan extension, really perplexing to me. But I think you need someone to try and win a Tour de France stage, and that's sort of the goal with him.
Ewan, I want to talk about him for a second here. A lot of people are like suggesting after a bad season for him, partially due to injury, partially because he just wasn't good enough in a lot of races, because his train wasn't good enough in a lot of races. Is he washed, or can we like expect him to come back next year? Because I high key expect him to have a better year next team. Like it can't be much worse than this season when it comes to Caleb Ewan, and I think he will win Grand Tour stages again next season. Or do you think it's actually like the point of no return where he had injuries that might make his body not in great physical form anymore?
Nah.
Like, okay.
Well, no, he didn't like need a knee surgery or anything. He didn't like, break his hip or anything. He just had like a lot of crashes, road rash. I would suggest some motivation issues for going to particular races as well. And that's what happened. So, yeah, 100% agree. When it comes to the big dance, San Remo, Giro, Tour next year, yeah, he'll be fine. Now, will his train still be terrible? Yep. So that's still that's still not fixed.
Hey, they signed Guarnieri, mate. Come on.
Yeah, Guarnieri, Schwarzman, and Zelig. Unreal combo. Yeah, and you look at, that's credit to Bora, right? They went with Van Poppel, repurposed him. They probably had to pay him a fair bit, and unreal lead up.